Street Fighter Five. It seems like everybody woke up yesterday morning and just was like, ugh, you know what? I miss Street Fighter Five, and everybody just went on the internet, just putting up old Street Fighter Five clips, talking about how cool the combos were, talking about how honest and stuff the game was during the last season, talking about how people should give it another try, talking about how, man, if it wasn't for the pandemic, really, y'all might have liked Street Fighter Five a whole lot earlier. Which I've came on this podcast already and told y'all, like, it happens all the time. Street Fighter Six is basically at a point where I even saw Brian Nuff saying, he was like, I don't think Street Fighter Six is going to change much. I think Capcom is happy with what this game is. Like all these updates we've been getting, all the things that we've addressed. It's like we've been talking about throw loops. They make throws stronger. We keep talking about the drive system and how crazy and wonky it is. They barely touch that if they do anything to it. It's like they've consistently shown us this is what we want the game to be. Like the most of their changes is like we'll tweak this on the character, nerf this, buff that. But the game seems like it is what it is, and people are just kind of to a point to where it's like you're hearing a lot of pros saying like Street Fighter Six is random. You really can't guess who's gonna win. You know, a lot of stuff is unfair. This drive mechanic, this drive gauge, drive mechanics are busted. So I feel like people have just gotten to a point to where we do with every game when they're looking at the game we have now and they're like, man, I really don't like this. This is what I have to deal with. And then the next thing you know, you're looking back at the old game like, oh, it was just so good, even though we trashed it for forever. It was so good. Like, we should have this, we should have that. Oh, we go reinstall it. People was talking about reinstalling Street Fighter 5 and going back and playing it. But I guess I could just start it off. Really, I think this is just it is what it is. Like this happens all the time whether people have jobs, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's whatever, people tend to not just be able to realize what they have, how good it is. Like everything is gonna come with flaws. Like everything is gonna have like its downs that go along with the ups. But it's like people really just can't seem to appreciate what they have until it's gone, you know. So it's like we get Street Fighter 6. Everybody's so happy they couldn't wait for Street Fighter 6 to come. I was even one of the people who was saying it. But then Street Fighter 6 comes out and people are just like, oh, this too offensive heavy. They're trying to make it too modern. Anybody could win. This wonky, crazy, all over the place stuff. Drive gauge, low forward in the drive rush, dump all my meter. Like it's just same like I'm getting tired of it. And it makes people go back and just be like, man, you know what? Street Fighter 5 wasn't that bad. You know, yeah, this sucked, but at least I didn't have to deal with this and this and this. Even though Street Fighter 5 was kind of like leaning towards what we know Street Fighter to be now. Like when we got V trigger, V reversals, you know, and all that other stuff, people were saying like, man, this is getting more like super offensive heavy and all this other stuff. People was talking about how when people pop V trigger and stuff like that, like get this man off me. He all over me, you know, and all this other stuff. I can remember you know, people talking about the what is it, V reversal? Basically, what it's like if I do this to get you off me, like, you know, they're not getting off me. You know, so people was talking about how like offensive oppressive Street Fighter 5 was, and now it's like, okay, they take Street Fighter 5 and they put Street Fighter 6 going to the next level. So next thing you know, it's like, oh well, 5 wasn't that bad. And it's just, I mean, it's what it is. It's really kind of hard to even make up like anything to just say about this because it's like we know everybody does this in the FGC, no matter what game it is. MK1 then came out. What did everybody say? Man, MKX was such a great game, or MK11 was even better than this. Tekken 8 that came out. Even Arslan Ash has been coming out leading the brigade that Tekken 7 was better. You know, so I mean, it just happens with every fighter. It probably happens with every game. Like I'm sure the Black Ops 6 is out right now, and you got people online talking about, but Black Ops 3 though. You know, it just, you know, I remember them days. So, you know, it's just what happens in gaming.
Right there.
It might be. But you know, people just, I mean, it's what humans do, man. It's just what humans do. They get something new. I mean, they'd have something, they hate it. Man, let me go get this job. Let me go get a new job because I ain't putting up with this. I ain't putting up with that. The next thing you know, you go get the new job, and then it got its own stuff it come with. And then next thing you know, like you think about the old job, like, dang, well, at least I ain't have to put up with this. At least I ain't have to do that. Like it's just what humans do. I don't know. I just really don't have like too much in-depth analysis on this topic because it's just I told y'all once before, people was online talking about how they missed Street Fighter 5, and then everybody was like, well, I don't see that. I ain't seeing that online. Because people are just so amazed because they thought Street Fighter 5 was trash for forever. You know, a lot of people hopped off by the time season 3 came around, and they just assumed Street Fighter 5 was garbage tier for forever. And then next thing you know, people not realizing that Street Fighter 6 was actually a great game by the end of it. So a lot of people were surprised, like, what y'all want 5 back for? It's just what people do. Whoever want to go next can go next.
I don't know. This is one of the ones where it's like people usually follow bandwagons, and I usually don't do that. When MK1 came out, from the jump I felt MK11 was better. I kept hearing people tell me, man, MK11 wasn't good. I'm like, I don't feel that way. MKX and MK11, I both felt when I first played MK1, like both of those were better game than this. Like there was no like. I think sometimes I avoid getting caught up in just like the newness and like it was just new and it's flat. Like I know I'm looking at what the game for what it is. Like, and it just wasn't that. Street Fighter 5, I've said this before on the podcast. I enjoy that game to a certain extent, and it was really only because of two characters, like Fong and G. Like those characters were just fresh and fun. I liked the way they played, different play styles, and they literally kept me playing Street Fighter 5. And it's weird. Like I know people talk about Street Fighter 6. It's like, do y'all not remember Ibuki? Like the nonsense with the bomb and the shuriken. Like,
oh yeah,
like V Trigger was just like busted on some characters. Balrog, just get up on you. I'm gonna punch you until there's nothing left. Like you had Seth with the Tandem engine. It's like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the game with V Trigger. And then it's like it was almost as if sometimes you didn't have a good V Trigger, like GG's. Like Fong, his V Trigger got better over time when it should have been that way from the get go. But it was just only okay compared to other V Triggers. You had so much stuff going on in the game. Rashid is kind of doing the same thing in 6 that he was in 5. Up, a lot of stuff jumping off the wall, flipping around, going downtown, having my way, making fun. Oh, activate tornado. I'm going to mix you up, flip, dips. Like, I don't know. I just don't miss Street Fighter 5. I just don't. It was good for what it was for the time that we had it, and it did eventually become an okay game. It was a decent game by the end of it. But I was ready for Street Fighter 6, man, and I still prefer Street Fighter 6. I know it's a lot of stuff going on in the game. It is crazy because I've said before the drive rush was random, and I remember somebody commented, "Oh, how is it random?" Blah blah. This I'm like, what, sir? And now people saying this like, I was like, but sometimes just listen to what I'm saying. When I say something, just listen to it because it's like I've been said it about Street Fighter 6. Everybody knows that drive rush is random. Sometimes it's annoying to deal with. And I saw somebody in some comments like, how's it random? It's not that hard to do. I'm like, all right, you got it. But I mean, it's just what we deal with. Every game is going to have some nonsense. Right. I have Street Fighter 4 installed on my computer. I do not have Street Fighter 5 installed on my computer. So that sells a lot. When Street Fighter 6 came out, I was like, hey, you know what? I still wouldn't mind playing Street Fighter 4. I did not feel that way about Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter 5 immediately got uninstalled when Street Fighter 6 came out. And this is probably not going to get installed again. The only way I would play it, like I said, Fong and G. That's the only thing that kept me playing that game. Because they were just fun characters. I like the characters. One of my favorite personalities and favorite players played G. He had one of the best alternate costumes in the game with the whole Q get up. But I don't know, man. People say, oh, it's so great. It's like, I guess. But sometimes I think it's just like people just be on a bandwagon saying it because somebody else is saying it. Like, did you really like the game? Because there was a lot of complaining when the game was out. But all of a sudden, man, it wasn't that bad, man. V-Trigger, Man, V-Trigger and Drive Rush, they are both volatile mechanics. Like, let's be honest. And defense is kind of one of them things that's fading away. Back in even Street Fighter 5, certain people had worse V-Triggers, V-Reversal than others. Fong's V-Reversal was not that great. You could get grabbed out of it. So it's like defense wasn't really that like taking that much care of in that game. So it's like, I don't know. I don't miss Street Fighter 5. Maybe y'all do, but I don't. I'll go back and play Street Fighter 4 before I play Street Fighter 5.
Real spiel.
man. It's real funny, like listening to Mr. Game and Lift talk about that because it's like, yeah, Mr. Game Lift made a really interesting comment about the fact that he still has Street Fighter 4 installed, but he doesn't have Street Fighter 5 installed, and he will not be reinstalling Street Fighter 5. The funny thing is like, and I know a lot of people might think this is controversial, but I like Street Fighter 5 well enough, but yeah, man, there were a lot of things about Street Fighter 5 that I didn't like, and in addition to that, it's really strange to me how everybody wants to pretend like the first like good amount of like Street Fighter 5 when it came out, when it was completely like bare bones, and it took so long for the game to actually get its legs under it. And it's like we have basically had to give it so much grace at the very beginning of its lifespan. And then it's like it took like it didn't really become like a complete game until almost around the time when it was done, like until like it was almost done as a game in general. Like we were
Yeah.
people are already talking about Street Fighter 6 before they were even talking about like finishing doing like what was like the championship edition and all that, when they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna put like the guy like Gil or something like that. And it's like we're done, man. Like we're ready to move on. You had your chance, you had your shot. So it's like now it's like, oh, Street Fighter 5 wasn't that bad. I'm like, I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I mean, yeah, there were definitely some nonsense. Like the fact is that there were several characters that were just like it. Sometimes it felt like were intentionally made not as good as other characters. Like the disparity between like some characters and other characters was just like horrible. Like I'll be honest, I think Falk as a character, I feel like they could have done a lot better with her. Like the way that they released Falk, I thought she looked like a cool character and I wanted to like her a lot, but it's just like the way that y'all did this character, I just don't feel like, I felt like there were other characters that did what she did but better, right? So, I don't know. In addition to that, going back to what Mr. Game and Lift said, I do not have Street Fighter 5 installed, but a game that I do have installed is Street Fighter Cross Tekken because I think that game is pretty cool. And honestly, like they're still doing like tournaments for that. Like they had a tournament for that game, like a 2v2 tournament for that game, like at CEO a little while ago. So I mean, like now it's kind of like you got to rediscovering old games like this, games like that definitely deserved a better shot. Another shot. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. Like Street Fighter 5, not so much. Like I probably won't be reinstalling Street Fighter 5, but I probably will play Street Fighter Cross Tekken again.